folks, and welcome back. Mark Duty today is going to talk about the Rings of Power. The showrunner addresses the patently evil racist backlash. Okay, let's get into this. You best have a very good reason for this. I don't see how people who are saying these things think that they're fighting for good. What? Fighting for the actual, you know, the actual content that you've produced has nothing to do with J.R.R. Tolkien, and this is the major issue of it. So there's Arondir, a made-up character that's not anywhere in the books, and again, right, so it's a black man, okay, we live in that day and age now, but, at the end of the day, there were no black elves, there were no black dwarves. And this is not because we're racist, it's because the source material, there wasn't any. So, using their same perspective, why isn't there any white people in Black Panther, in Wakanda? Why? So using Hollywood's same methodology on everything. But anyway, we could beat the bush about this. Let's continue. The Lord of the Rings of Power showrunner, J.D. Payne, has responded to racist abuse leveled against the show and its cast. Okay, let's see some receipts of this. We want to see where the racism is. We want to see what's being said by whom. Let's have a bit of receipts on this. But again, we don't. After the prequel series debuted in September, the show was largely targeted with criticism regarding diversity of its cast, because it wasn't in the source material. However, this isn't the issue why people hate Rings of Power. People hate Rings of Power because it's shockingly bad. It's written terribly. But anyway, let's continue. A statement was released on Amazon Lord of the Rings Twitter account, because, Twitter rules the world these days, after the 2-episode premiere, which condemned the relentless racism, threats, harassment, and abuse against the cast. Right, so again, most of the abuse that I know of was actually towards Galadriel, white woman. So are you saying that people can be racist against the whites? Because Galadriel is a horrible person. She's narcissistic. She's pure evil to her core. And so are the Arthurs. But anyway, where is this racist harassment and abuse they're receiving? Most 99% of everything negative about the show is about how it has been produced. People love Disa. People love Disa. They love Doran. They love the chemistry there. There's not a problem. All right, she's a black dwarf, right? And there's no black dwarves in J.R. Tolkien's work. And again, we see people complaining about it, when the fact is people actually like this character. But anyway, speaking to the Hollywood Reporter, Payne described the backlash as patently evil, and then it goes against the spirit of the author of J.R.R. Tolkien. Now let me tell you what's against the spirit of the author of J.R.R. Tolkien. Is when you take his creation and you take a big stinking turd on it and completely rewrite, fabricate characters, fabricate the entire story to something that does not exist. Rings of Power has nothing to do with anything to do with Lord of the Rings. It has been completely remolded into modern political statement where you have Nary Sues, who are also like Karens. Now, I didn't coin that phrase, we all know who did, which was from a crazy leftist. But again, right, let's continue. The spirit of Tolkien is about desperate peoples who don't trust one another and look different from one another. Okay, so we're talking about races here. We're talking about elves, humans, dwarves, hobbits, wizards. These are all completely different races with completely different attributes, with completely different looks. Right? The Numenorians, even they're completely wrong. But again, Alright, I can understand that you can't film everybody as being 6 to 7 foot. But I digress, okay? And, from finding common ground as a friendship accompanying big things, Payne said that the spirit we've tried to inculcate, inculcate, I don't know what that word is, into every single comma and period in the show. No, what you've done is you've inserted modern political ideology into everything, which again doesn't really make the show bad. What makes the show bad is that how the show has been produced, again, has been an absolutely awful shit show. That this aspiration would be offensive to people and enrage them. It's very hard for us to understand what they are protecting. They're protecting the work of J.R.R. Tolkien. The story you have produced. Again, this comes back to how it's been produced. Nothing to do with someone's skin colour, but yet them factors are in there as well. So again, we're protecting, or gatekeeping as they like to call it, the works that were created by a much greater mind than these idiots that are writing this show. They've completely changed the story. Everything is wrong, everything is different. And this is the issue everybody seems to have. I don't see how people who are saying things think that they are fighting for good. We are fighting to keep our intellectual property correct. How can you change an extremely brilliant, thought through story where it goes from several different races with several different backgrounds through hatred of each other, through desperate times they come together, they put aside all their past and unite as one. The problem is you're putting the modern politics into this. But again, we're back to why this show is bad is not because people are racist, it's because you can't come up with anything decent. And it's a shit show. Again, we don't know how many times people can beat about the bush and say that this is completely awful. There's a line in the show in the episode 7 where Galadriel says every war is fought from within, Galadriel says every war is fought from without and from within. Even if you're fighting for something you think is good, if you do something worse in that fight, then you become evil. So this works both ways. The showrunners themselves have changed the story, who they think they are fighting for good by putting in modern politics. And because of doing this, they're actually producing evil, because they are completely changing the works of J.R.R. Tolkien and creating an absolute shit show where none of it makes sense. The storyline is absolutely poor. Let's be honest, let's just take the Harfoots for instance. If the Harfoots weren't in the show, what difference so far? I mean, we're 8 episodes in, 7 episodes in, something like that. And if they weren't in the show, would they have affected the storyline in any way? No, they make no difference. They just wanted a female Frodo and a female Sam because of modern politics. That's the only reason. But the woman of Galadriel, what's her name? Morfin Clark or whatever her bloody name is, I don't know. Her acting is awful, but her character is completely evil. She's on a genocidal mission to kill every orc. She's out there to kill Sauron. Her entire arc for this show is purely evil. And we're meant to be rooting for the heroes, but again, the only people that seem to be good in this show seems to be the orcs. The orcs have had their lands taken from them. They want somewhere to call home. They're fighting for survival. So far, the people that we're meant to hate and be against the evil people in this show have been made good, and the good people are on a genocidal mission to wipe out the people being portrayed as evil who are good. I mean, wow, this is insane. I don't see how people are saying that these things think that they're fighting for good. It's patently evil. So we've kind of got an image now that the showrunners themselves are claiming that we're evil because why? Because apparently we're racist, which we're not. The whole issue is we are saying that their destruction of a beautiful piece of work has now, been crafted into pure evil. And from the consumer, the customer, the people watching this, the fans, we are now seeing that because they're changing everything, they're the ones that have destroyed this property, and they're basically calling themselves evil, because there's no other way to look at this. But anyway, let's continue. Last month, Lord of the Rings actors Elijah Wood, Billy Boyd, and Dominic Monaghan and Sean Astin showed their support against the backlash in social media, writing, "You are all welcome here." Right, look at this image. What have these three done since Lord of the Rings? Does anybody even know? They're just trying to revitalize their career. They're using this as a platform to boost their own career. That's it. Everybody is welcome in Lord of the Rings. It doesn't matter. I'm a white male human. I can see myself as an elf. I can see myself as a dwarf. My skin color does not affect who I can imagine myself to be. But for some reason, we have to have representation on everything. But that, again, isn't the issue. It's the story. The story is garbage. It's complete destruction of the entire laws and works that these people said that they have read through and through and adore. In the same THR report, it is claimed that Netflix and HBO pitched several ideas for Lord of the Rings TV show to the Tolkien estate before Amazon landed the rights. And what happened? What happened? Don't forget, they also went to Peter Jackson and said, "We've got to, we would like your advice on this." And he said, "Well, I can't really give you any advice until you show me a script." What did they do? They ghosted him. Why? Because they knew he would say that this was garbage, that this was boring, and this is complete destruction of the law, complete destruction of the works of Tolkien. Not only that, Tom Shippey, they got rid of him because he disagreed with the works. So Amazon, knowing that they wanted to make their own Game of Thrones, they wanted their own Game of Thrones. However, Lord of the Rings is not Game of Thrones. Lord of the Rings is its own masterpiece, its own brilliant story. It is all written for you. But you are so incapable of taking something of great stature and producing it into live action that it's just garbage. Based on the audiences to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Rings of Power covers events in Middle-earth's Second Age. Not really, because they've made their own story. They've took a bit of a line and they've ran with it, including the rise of Sauron and Forging of the Rings. Bearing in mind, this is Lord of the Rings of Power. Season 1 has not been about Forging of the Rings. Season 1 has basically been about the creation of Mordor, the origin story of Mordor, the origin story of Mount Doom. And let's not forget, they have claimed that Galadriel's husband is dead. And where is her daughter? Nobody knows. Missing in action. However, they've pushed the narrative that the reason Sauron has become evil is because, simply, right, the spoilers now, that Halbrand is Sauron. And they wanted to make a love story. And because of Galadriel, Sauron, or Hellbrand, has been made evil. Just to even clue this up, don't forget at the start, Hellbrand, the mark of Sauron, right? Just put that together. A branding is a mark. So just his name alone indicates that this is Sauron. Not the fact that not in so many words, that they've constantly pushed the narrative that of the mystery box, because this is bad reboot, and all they do is mystery boxes. Everything's been a mystery box in this show. Origin story and Mithril, mystery box. Who is this wizard? Mystery box. You know, this wizard isn't Gandalf because we can't use the name Gandalf, but they'll probably use a blue wizard or something just because they haven't got the rights. They don't have the rights to a lot of things. So they've kind of made up their own story. But season 1 has not been about forging of the rings. Season 1 has simply been the love story between Galadriel and Sauron and the origin of Mithril, which the origin of Mithril, they've completely made that into a shit show because that's not how Mithril was around. They've completely fabricated that story. And the fact that, you know, look, the sword hilt, right? So the season's been about the sword hilt, that this amazing weapon. And basically, this amazing weapon was used to open up a dam to release its waters. Why? I don't know. Because look, think about it. They had to dig the tunnels all the way to the volcano, to Mount Doom, right? Even though Mount Doom is in the wrong place. It's in the wrong place. And, you know, so again, even the locations are completely wrong. But let's think about this. The orcs had to dig a tunnel, right? You've got a watchtower of the elves watching for any activity of the orcs. And they didn't notice the giant tunnels with smoke and everything billowing out, but nobody noticed. Nobody noticed that villages were going missing. Nobody noticed that villages were being destroyed. So this is just, even that is stupid. But they had to use the sword hilt to release the water. What a shit way to make it. Because even if Galadriel wasn't there with the army with Numenor, then Adar would still have found the sword and still would have activated it. But just think about the stupidity of it releases the dam's water, right? So it releases the dam's water. But they've had to do all this extra stuff in order to get his plan to work. So again, that storyline doesn't make sense. It boggles the mind. But anyway, in a 4-star review, NME wrote, Rings of Power Fresh Faces do some of the most interesting work on the show. As a start, this is an excellent one. Tell Sam Gamgee the tale's not done yet. Oh, hell. I mean, it's been reduced, you know. This story needs to be done, and it needs to be rewritten. Season 2 has been announced, as we all know, but just listen to this. Rings of Power Fresh Faces. So you've included completely fresh characters that shouldn't be there, right? Extra characters, right? So obviously you've got Isildur. He's got a sister for some reason in this. Again, there's another character, Isildur's sister, right? What's her entire story in this? That she goes to college. She goes to Numenorian College or university, and that's her whole story. That's it. So why even include it? But anyway, we've I can sit here all day going in everything wrong about it. But this, calling your fans evil when you have completely changed everything about the story and made your own thing, right? That makes no sense whatsoever. How Galadriel tanks a pyroclastic flow. Yet, see where she wakes up, and after she's been hit by this, everything's on fire, everything's melted, people are absolutely destroyed, and she's just got a bit of dirt on her. So, the backlash isn't racist. The backlash is because you've completely destroyed something that was good and made it evil. And then you're calling everybody else evil when the issue is you. The issue is your story. Your characters are unlikable. Your characters are forgettable. Your characters are completely made up. The storylines are shockingly bad. You know, look at the Dwarven arc, right? Shall we dig? Shall we not dig? Shall we dig? Shall we not dig? You know what I mean? It's like, that's been it for 7 episodes. Shall we dig or shall we not dig? You know what I mean? And the fact that, I'm just, right? So you've got the half-huts, which are shockingly bad, which have nothing to do with anything to do with the story. Why it's even in there, we don't know. Maybe, the season finale will give us some kind of insight. But again, these don't have the potential to write anything decent. The story has been shockingly bad, and it's only going to get worse. Unless season 2 they make a massive change. But at the moment, all the showrunners, all the writers, everybody is still in play. So the same people that made this shit show is now doing season 2. Is it going to get any better? No. They're just pulling down the pants and taking it, and they're having a double dip. They're doubling down on the shit show they've created. So people, you are not evil. You simply want to see a good show. A good show. Alright, people have been race swapped. Nobody's really that bothered about that. It's the writing. It's the absolutely ridiculousness. How people can teleport from one side of the map to another. There's no time ever explained in this. In the matter of a night, 2 nights, they've half built the forge that they've never mentioned again, which I'm assuming is going to be on the last episode. I'm presuming they've finished it by the time they get to this. But anyway, people, you are not evil. You are simply understanding that this show is shit. It's written by a 5-year-old. It makes no sense. There's no time in this. It jumps from one place to another. Things happen so fast that it makes no sense. Yet time jumps so fast, and yet so little happens in this show, which is really worrying. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there, people. Anyway, support the channel any way you can. Please like, share, and subscribe. Ta-da, my patently evil watchers. Ta-da.